Well, hello there. We're going to do an end of the year recap. Really, this is just a self assessment to see where I've ended up. And I got good news and I got bad news. Which do you want first? I'm going to give you the bad news first. The bad news is that I genuinely feel like I bombed this year. I genuinely feel like I failed. And it's kind of a rough place to be. The good news is that objectively I didn't. And so, there's a mismatch between my perception of reality and reality. And, reality is undefeated. And so my perception of reality needs to be adjusted. And that's actually why I do these videos. Because sometimes my understanding of what's going on is not the same as what's actually going on. I know, shocker. So let's talk about it. How did I do? Well, again, I feel like I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I feel like I really failed the last half of this year. I was on track to hit some pretty aggressive goals, and I just completely missed them. And I'll talk about why that happened. But when I set out to get into this year, I had two real periods during my year when I knew that I would have time to write. And when I mean I'd have time to write, I mean my schedule was wide open. And then I had two periods during the year where I knew that I wouldn't have a lot of time to write. So the beginning of the year, January, February, March, into April, I knew that I would have a lot of time. And so I stacked a lot of my writing then. And then I thought to myself, well, the summer is going to be really hard. I have a lot of travel. I'm not going to be able to write a ton. My schedule's crazy. So I'm going to plan on not writing then. But then in the fall, September, October into November, I'm going to have plenty of time to write. And then December is always just a mess. Holidays and between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's a mess. A good mess because, fantastic time, spending time with family and travel and watching my kids perform, in their choirs and things like that. All great, fantastic, but not a great time for writing. And so I thought to myself, well, I've got these sort of two periods during the year when I'm going to write, and then I have two periods during the year when I'm not really going to. And the beginning of the year went really well. January, February, March, it went really well. I wrote a lot. I wrote like 7 books in the first 4 months of the year. Pretty good, especially since I was also traveling during that time. So remember how I said my schedule was going to be wide open and I wasn't going to have any travel? I had a bunch of travel, quite a bit actually. And yet I still managed to write a lot. So then summer rolls around and I was glad for the break and I had a great summer. I got to travel again a lot. I went to India, I went to Singapore with my older 2 kids. That was just a fantastic time. Got to visit some of my family who live overseas, and I really enjoyed that. But then I got to September, and there were some emotionally draining events. A couple people that I know and love passed away. One expectedly and the other unexpectedly. And they happened within 2 days of each other. It has taken me a considerable amount of time to process those two deaths, and I'm still in that process even now. But it really slowed me down, as it should have. I want to be cautious here. I know I can come across as like super intense, especially when it comes to like writing and productivity and that kind of stuff. But the reality is, and I know I've made videos on this before, but the reality is that like no matter what you're doing, life comes first. Like life just has to come first. And whether you're working as a writer, whether you're working doing something else, doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, life has to come first. And so on the one hand, I'm disappointed in myself because I genuinely think I could have done better. And I genuinely think that I allowed my sadness to become an excuse in a way that I shouldn't have. But at the same time, I also want to recognize that, what I do as a writer is a intensely creative thing, and it requires a specific state of mind. And I know for a fact that state of mind can be cultivated. It can be manufactured. Like it's a skill that you can develop, right? We don't believe that inspiration has to just strike for you to write well. Like, no, not at all. But I did not cultivate the right mentality, the right attitude, September, October, and I got writing done. I actually, I finished 2 books during that time period. So it's not like I didn't do anything. I still wrote, and, that's good. But I think I averaged about 2 days a week during that period of time. It was hard. It was very hard. Thankfully, I'm coming out of it, though. And end of November into December, I have been able to really pick up the pace and really just move forward better, right? Now, part of that is that at the beginning of the year, my daily goal was 20,000 words. And I could do that in these short sprints, these bursts. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I just train myself to be able to do that all the time? Then things sort of fell apart as far as my routines and all of that kind of stuff, because I was traveling, and then because of all of this sort of mental and emotional turmoil. And then at that point, I still had stuck in my head that, I'm going to do 20,000 word days. And then I just failed to do that over and over and over and over and over. And even the days that I wrote, I didn't hit those goals. And so I've done some reevaluation. I've done, towards the end of the year here in December, and I've rebuilt my schedule, and I've shifted the way I'm doing things a little bit, and I've picked a smaller goal that I've been able to consistently hit. And what's been encouraging, and so right now I'm going through these are all of the ways that I sort of feel like I failed, right? And so let's transition here, or what I've been talking about, a lot of the ways that I've sort of failed. Let's transition, though, into reality. So the reality is that I wrote 1.5 million words this year. And I've written 12 books and a novella. And that's pretty good. That's averaging 1 a month for 120,000 words. And considering there were entire months when I didn't write at all, that's pretty good. I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at all. And again, perception. Seth says, man, I really have failed to hit my goals this year. I wanted to do 16 books. That's 4 books off. I could have written those 4 books in October or September and October and November. I could have written those extra 4 books, and I've just completely failed. Reality says, 12 books is fantastic, especially considering I literally didn't write for 3 months this summer. And so 12 books in 9 months, yeah, that's really good. That's like stupid levels good. Again, perception versus reality, right? And that's why it's so helpful to do these checks, to say, okay, where am I? What is actually true? Now, one thing that is true that I think is that sort of sits on the negative side, and is a learning experience, is that my my habits have been bad. I have been setting unrealistic expectations for myself and then just ignoring the warning signs that tell me this is not sustainable. And so I spent a lot of time this year frustrated because I couldn't hit this goal that I had set for myself, even though the goal was unrealistic. And I knew that I was shooting high, but I tend to do that, right? I like to set just really aggressive goals, and then even if I don't hit them, I'm usually fine. But this time it really bothered me. This time not hitting my productivity goals really did bother me. And it again, perception versus reality. I should be able to do this. I should be able to write 20,000 words a day, no problem. The reality is I cannot write 20,000 words a day and not be exhausted and distant from my family and zoned out. I cannot write 20,000 words a day and avoid having my book suffer. And so, you have to adjust perception to reality. No matter how much I wish that I could do this thing, write 20,000 words a day, perfectly fine, and still be a good dad, and still be a good husband, and still be a good, member of my community, like, I can't do that. And so you have to adjust to reality. And so my adjustment to reality so far has been going well. I've dialed back how much I'm writing to 15,000 words a day, and I've found that to be a more sustainable pace. I've started reorganizing my day so that my priorities are different. And when my priorities become different, all of a sudden I find myself better able to do the thing. And 15,000 words a day is not that far off from 20,000 words a day. And maybe I'll work up to it. Who knows? But maybe I won't. And even if I don't, that's okay. Again, what's the reality? 15,000 words a day is stupidly good. Like, that's ridiculously good. And not being happy with that is really foolish. And so that's one of the things that I've been thinking through is just, okay, what's accurate, right? What's really true? What's factual? And then how do I adjust my understanding of the world to meet those things? So one of the principles that I try to live by is being ruthlessly honest. Now that means being ruthlessly honest about, what's bad and about what's good. But the nice thing about ruthless honesty is that after I understand what's true, I can adjust my life to fit it, right? So let's talk a little bit about what I actually wrote. So I closed out the Battle Mage Farmer series, which is really exciting. I wrote 2 books in the Iron Tyrant series. One of them came out at the end of October, and one of them is coming out at the end of January. I wrote book 4 in the Dreamer's Throne series. I was really hoping to write another book in that series. That was one of the 4 books that I missed this year, but unfortunately, I only got number 4 done. But I am really excited to write 5 and 6, hopefully next year. Tower series, I wrote book 6 and I wrote book 7. And I'm excited to pick up with book 8 at the beginning of next year. Soul Caller, I wrote book 2, and again, I was hoping to write book 3, but that is a series like Dreamer's Throne that sort of has to take a back seat, and so I didn't get to book 3 in Soul Caller series, which is unfortunate. And then I wrote books 1, 2, and 3 in the Exlian Syndrome series. That series is going to start launching in March of next year. All right, so to round out this conversation, I sort of looked at where I feel like I failed and where I feel like I succeeded, and I really do feel like I was not as productive as I wanted to be. I sort of failed in my scheduling, and I failed in my productivity goals. And a large part of that is just that I set really unrealistic expectations, and then ended up in a situation where no amount of hard work was going to be able to dig me out of it, right? And so that's on me. I was the one who set those expectations. I made commitments that I was then not able to honor because I just didn't give myself enough time. And so one of my real goals for next year is to do better with my scheduling and to give myself more time for everything. And then if I go faster, great. My new routine, my new rhythm has me doing about 15,000 words a day, super consistently. And I know I always preach consistency, and then I run off and I'm like, let me try to do all the things, and then I end up not being consistent. Don't do that. Don't do that, folks. So one of my goals for next year is to just really be consistent. 15,000 words a day, as many days as I possibly can. And which is interesting because my goal for last year was 20,000 words a day, as many days as I possibly can. But this is a much more sustainable pace. But what about success? Because I've had some real fun successes this year. And chief among them actually is I've been really pleasantly surprised with how Iron Tyrant is doing as a series. It came out again sort of towards the end of the year, and I'm genuinely excited for how it's doing. People seem to really like it. It's a style of writing that I have wanted to try for a while, a much more classic fantasy feel than your typical lit RPG, and I'm just loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. Book 2, so fun. I'm really excited to get that into people's hands. So anyway, that's sort of it. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to drop them in the comments. A huge reason that I make these videos is because I remember a lot of the vagueness that existed around writing and being a writer and, setting goals and doing all of these things when I first started. And I don't want other people to be stuck in that same place. And so if there's anything that, I can help you with in terms of answering questions or sharing my experience, then please let me know in the comments. I would absolutely love to do that for you. I hope you've had a great year. And, I hope this next year is even better for you.